Unfiltered, a live edition of Unfiltered, and we are coming to you here on, as I do this, a Thursday morning. It is good to have you, belated as you will be, on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast, where most of you are. And please, if you're watching elsewhere, get over there, like, subscribe, give 5-star ratings, get over to Unfiltered with Casey Stern at all your different platforms. And we're now live on Instagram at Unfiltered with Casey Stern, and the YouTube channel is Unfiltered with Casey Stern. You can get that in the bio if you're following over on Twitter, or X, if you will, at Casey Stern. So a number of ways to get to me along the way. We'll hear, in short, we'll talk some baseball. We'll get into the latest on Ohtani. We'll talk about the debut of Jackson Holliday. We'll get into some of the other scenarios going on around Major League Baseball, set you up for Thursday and more. As always, I love your comments. You can bring them to me. I do respond to each and every one. You can get to me on the YouTube channel or on Twitter or X at Casey Stern here at Unfiltered. Whereas we continue on our Unfiltered revolution, this officially episode number 292. You can get on board with us 24/7 thanks to our good friends at Bet Online. As always, we're presented by Bet Online. They're your number one source for your sports betting needs. Latest odds, lines, and matchup reports, baseball, basketball, boxing, golf, and more. They continue to be the fastest and easiest way to get all your wagers. They've got live casino and card games. They're all available right from your phone. Get over the website, use your mobile device, and do it now. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. It'll get you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. It is Bet Online, where the game starts as I get started here. A lot of times with stories that are developing, we don't wait. And in today's day and age, we can't wait. Somebody's got to break the story. 4 other people in the industry are being yelled at by producers or editors. Why weren't you on it first? Now they got to follow up. They got to get information. That train goes on down, all the way down to somebody in mom's basement who is trying to either break news themselves or react to what is out there, even though we're not sure what is out there yet. And this story has had twists and turns. Oh my. First 48 to 72 hours. And if you missed any of the episodes, go back. We went through this. Ohtani, this first when it broke, went through it after the statement. I talked about some of the holes, some of the questions, some of the concerns. And the whole time said 2 things. 1, that I didn't think he was guilty of gambling. And that 2, I clearly hoped he was not, because we know what he is for the game. And I want him to be what he seems to be. You know, they say never meet your heroes, but we've been through this enough in this sport with PEDs and other things that you do not want to be in a situation where it's anything but the reality that it seems to be, and that Ohtani is anything but as sincere and great a human, in addition to the amazing player he is, that he seems to be. The first 48 to 72 hours, with all the reports on ESPN, it seemed like everything was as follows, just common sense-wise at the time, and is played out in real time. It was, hey, Ohtani's got a lot of money. His buddy, he's the interpreter, but Ipe Mizuhara is pretty much closest confidant here in the States, had a gambling problem. Went to Ohtani, and Ohtani covered the gambling debts for him. Maybe didn't realize that put him in harm's way, into trouble, but he didn't make any bets. He covered the gambling debts for him. And that's what seemed to have been played out in the reports over the first 48 to 72 hours of this, and then things changed. Then it was Mizuhara hadn't told Ohtani, and Ohtani didn't know, and then there was a break in days where we're sitting there wondering who's telling the truth. Then Ohtani, and let's be fair, hours before that presser, I thought when we heard that it was going to be a statement, quote unquote, we're getting some legalese of, hey, I can't really say anything. This is a legal matter and investigation's ongoing. But I know that everything will be cleared, and I just want to play baseball, and hopefully we can concentrate on baseball, and I'm not going to talk about this until this situation is over. And that would have been fine, because even if we're not happy with it, it's not about us, it's about him. And the guy is subject to investigation, and in the middle of, we're not talking about Major League Baseball, we're talking about feds, right? I mean, you get that. I mean, whatever it was going to be. But then the statement was way more in depth, I thought, than it probably needed to be, and we thought it would be, and gave us a lot more insight into just how bad things seem to be with Ipe Mizuhara. Because it's one thing to say, well, he lied on a resume and he didn't go to this college or whatever, and all that stuff that started to come out, right? It's another thing to say that not only was he stealing all of this money, But he basically was lying to his best friend here, making Ohtani look like a fool, and didn't tell him anything about it, and said, oh, by the way, after I have this meeting, in Korea after, the first game, we can kind of hang out in the hotel and I'll explain to you what I've been doing with your money and with your life. I mean, that didn't seem, to use the My Cousin Vinny term, to hold water, because it sounds so terrible. But maybe it is even worse than terrible. Because if you read the reports yesterday in New York Times and then ESPN, and we'll get into some of this, but I'll just give you kind of what is out there if you have not seen it. It's pretty bad. And one of the worst parts is it, and again, this is an investigation from the IRS, the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California, all those agencies. That is the serious nature of what you're dealing with. But the Times reported on Wednesday, yesterday as I do this here, that prosecutors had uncovered evidence that Mizuhara may have stolen more money from Ohtani than even the $4.5 million reported. This is the worst part. Now, if you go back to, before I get to it, if you go back to some of what I've said, if you've been following it here on the podcast and the show, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get them, tell your friends and your friends' friends, please. But if you were listening, I said one of the biggest questions I had was, how did all of this occur under Ohtani's nose without him knowing at those levels of money? Because regardless of how much money you make, when you're talking about $700 million, it's not like that's in his bank account now all in one foul swoop for this contract. When you've got $450K, $500K, $550K installments being paid out, you would notice that. How did he not notice that? And I talked about that in a previous pod on the Ohtani situation. And then this came out, and this is, again, this is reports. Please understand, I'm just, giving you, and we're breaking down what the Times and ESPN had as this investigation seemingly, and by the way, I said, and, poo-poo me, because I said Rob Manfred must have been kidding himself to think this thing would be short. It's only been, 3 weeks, I think, at this point, and they're deep into it and trying to put a conclusion to it. And we're negotiating a plea of guilty for Ippei Mizuhara right now, which I can't even imagine with the three authorities that we just talked about when you're dealing with the IRS and Homeland Security and, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the amount of jail time or money or who knows what we're even discussing in that plea. But this part makes you nauseous. Mizuhara reportedly changed the settings on Ohtani's bank account so Ohtani wouldn't receive alerts or confirmation about transactions, the Times reported. So when we wondered, how is Ippei controlling his bank? How does he have information on the bank? How's he getting the money himself? How's Ohtani not knowing? This dude going in, changing and turning off notifications like he don't want to hear from an ex so that Ohtani can't hear from his bank. Hey, dude. Who knows from what? I mean, when you get those fraud alerts, heaven forbid, and this happened to anybody else, you're sitting there in the wrong state or some state you don't normally go to or some gas station you don't normally go to, and you're getting like $12 in gas. And, shout out to Chase Bank, who does this all the time. But you're Wells Fargo, who does this all the time, too. You're sitting in a situation where all of a sudden you're getting like, hey, was this really you? Well, Ohtani not getting notifications for anything because this dude turning them off. I mean, that's disgusting. This is you want to talk about a villain, and you want to talk about a villain to forget the Major League Baseball game. And clearly, at the first and foremost, personally, Ohtani is a friend, but just in general, for this guy to steal it, and the reports are more than the $4.5 million, and clearly, if he got access to his bank account and he turning off notifications, who the hell knows how much money he stole? If, again, based on the investigation, based on the reports from the Times and ESPN from that investigation, this is true. And I say that not to be annoying and keep going down that road, but I say that because we don't know what is going on down this road. We're not investigating it. And just like the first 48 to 72 hours of this didn't seem what it ended up being, who the hell knows once this thing comes down? But again, what we do know, negotiating a plea of guilty, and we're talking about agencies you don't want to be pleading guilty to, and we're talking about the feds, I'm talking about the IRS, talking about the U.S. Attorney's Office in California. We're hearing an investigation that's almost done, apparently, after 3 weeks, which is how guilty this guy must be. Guilty as sin, more than $4.5 million, and We're hearing about the fact that he turning off his alerts. What kind of a human being, what kind of a human being would take the friendship given to him and a job that you have solely because of him? Without Ohtani, you don't have this role. This is who and what you are in an amazing world you just got to step into in Major League Baseball with one of the heroes all time of the game already for what he can do. And not only do you throw it all away, but you then go ahead and you steal now reportedly more than $4.5 million from your friend. And reportedly, you're in his bank account, changing his notifications, turning them off. So you in control of all the money. You want to talk about a villain. You want to talk about a jackass. That's the way this investigation seems to be playing out as of now. And more on that as, of course, the situation develops, because we have no idea what will happen next. But that's where we are. They say that they're close to closing. We'll keep you posted on that, of course, here, as you will everywhere else. Yesterday, a big day in the league, even though he went hitless for Jackson Holliday making his debut. I was so happy about this. And I texted his dad yesterday. I was so happy about this because, for me personally, I'm in this business 20 some odd years or whatever it is now at this point, a little over 20 years. And one of the better people and one of my better friends that I've made in the game is Jackson's dad, Matt, who I will always joke with him, was a broadcast partner of mine for like a week and a half, and then decided to go back and play baseball for another couple of years when he wasn't retired yet, but was at least teetering on it. I sent him back. You're welcome. But one of the better dudes in the game, and such a great family. And to see this kid succeed at this level, to be the number one pick, and to now be the number one prospect in the game, and wearing his dad's number 7. And kudos to the Ripken family, of course. Cal Senior, last one to wear it. And as a coach, he was a part of the coaching staff. He wasn't managing back in '92. Billy Ripken in '88. Billy, the last player to do it. But that family to give, their grace and say, hey, go get them. And speaking of grace, if you didn't see what Tony Kemp did yesterday, and if you haven't read his tweet, pause this, go read it now, and then come back to me. And I think it's just at Tony Kemp, maybe on X, but go look it up. And I posted this on Facebook as well if you're friends with me over there. Tony Kemp, who got DFA'd to make room for Jackson Holliday, put out an unbelievable tweet yesterday in which it showed, and I want to read this, it showed the utmost of class and was just so unbelievably cool. Because if you want to talk about having the ability to, what is it? They see the forest through the trees, and an understanding of place and the game and the respect and everything that this game is about. Tony Kemp, who got DFA'd and hopefully will get picked up by somebody else, has always been a class act. This is the tweet. And Major League Baseball put it out yesterday because it was so cool. In the fall of 2010, our college had a series against the Longhorns for a 3-game set. Our hitting coach at the time was Josh Holliday, and his brother Matt brought his kid to our early practice. I remember watching his son at J_Holliday7 with a sweet lefty swing. Go get him, kid. I mean, that is just unbelievable class right there from Tony Kemp. But I can't wait to watch Jackson Holliday play. I know he was hitless yesterday. This guy's got a sweet lefty swing. He's got power that's still developing. Obviously, we know he can play short. He's going to play second here. What a double play combination that's going to be. He'll continue to get better and better the more time that he gets. And the great thing is that the Orioles are not done. Their system is still loaded. Their AAA team is... it's a AAA all-star team, if we're being fair. If you're not aware of how many dudes Mike Elias and that group have now stocked, they are loaded for bear. They're loaded to bring guys up. They're loaded to go ahead and use guys as capital for trade if they want to do that and use them to go and acquire at the deadline. The Orioles are unbelievably stocked. With the bringing up of Jackson Holliday, it is only the next step to what the development will be and what the pain in the ass the Orioles will be for the rest of that American League for years and years to come. They are unbelievably set up and continue to get younger and continue to get better. And I'm so happy for the Holliday family and so happy for Jackson Holliday, and best of luck to him. The White Sox need some better luck because their injury concerns continue to get worse. Moncada now out 3 to 6 months. They already lost Eloy. They already got at least Robert down. I mean, this is, what are they, 2-9 or 3-10 or whatever it is. They're already so bad so soon that you kind of don't care about the record. That's how bad they are this early, unfortunately. And if you're a White Sox fan, got to be pretty disgraceful to be dealing with currently. So feel free if you need, any therapists, go onto the chat, and I'm sure somebody will go in and kind of hook you up in the city of Chicago. But get to me. I mean, what's it like being a White Sox fan right now? Of course, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get podcast. Jump on the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, get over there. Do it now. Tell your friends. Exclusive content, videos of all of our interviews, all of our guests. Speaking of Jackson Holliday, I've had Matt Holliday on this show 3 times, including one time in depth talking about Jackson Holliday and that relationship and him coming up. So if you're an Orioles fan, you want to hear that as well. So jump in and get that. One thing I don't want to hear, and I talked about this in a pod yesterday, but I want to at least jump in here in case you're here for Ohtani so you can get this as the side dish. We are not even, or what are we, 2 weeks into a baseball season now, I think officially today, right? 2 weeks. The baseball season is long. It's 162 games. And it is that for a reason. The cream rises to the top. Is it too long? It is. But we know what it is. And then we forget what it is. Well, what do I mean? As I wave the Mutombo finger at you if you're watching. No matter how many years you watch baseball, no matter how many you fans watch this game, understand this game, love this game, you will always forget that in the first week or two of a season, it is not the end of the season. Not for your team and not for individual players. If your favorite players or players you love to hate, like if you're in New York with Francisco Lindor, players you used to love and now you're like practicing some hate on, thank you, Rowdy Tellez, for getting in there. If you're Bednar with Pittsburgh, guys get off the bad starts. I watched Mariano Rivera once. Somebody can go find the year who's listening or watching this. But I remember him blow 2 saves. It was against the Oakland A's. Marcos Scutaro got him one of the 2 times to open a season, and I believe it was his best statistic year. And people were like, oh, he's done. And it was towards the end of his career. Oh, Mariano's done. I remember I was on the air, and this is the question. Is Mariano finished? He had blown like 2 saves to open a season. Somebody go find it. Against the A's, Scutaro was 1. Don't remember who the other one was. And oh, my God. And he had like an ERA under 2 for the year. Bednar clearly doesn't have it. He's hitting dudes, walking dudes. Give him a freaking break as he earned that in Pittsburgh, where he's been your all-star and where, by the way, he's a hometown dude. Can you give the guy a break, please? And on the Lindor side, Met fans, most of you, I'm sorry, and you understand, look, that's an 86 plaque behind me. Many of you, not most, are just morons. You're just morons. You're concentrating so much on what Lindor got paid, you're not paying his money. You're concentrating on what Lindor got paid. Steve Cohen got oodles of cash. Remember, he also had Scherzer. He also had Verlander. And he also was going after Correa. And he also was going 300+ million after Yamamoto. Get a clue. By the way, also, go give me a list. Get a blank piece of paper of the shortstops who were better than Francisco Lindor last year. Write them down. Let me know who they are. How many guys you got on the list? How many? 0, 1, 2? How many? Because you got more than that, you're wrong. So what do you have? Tell me. Get a clue. Seriously. Grow up. Wake up. The team's not very good this year. It's going to be up and down. You're getting help from some rain, probably from some disappointments. And that's just the way it is. And that's not me being a pessimist, but grow up. Wanted to say this unbelievably touching moment, and I didn't get to touch on this a couple of days ago at Fenway with the Wakefield children and throwing out the first pitch. And an unbelievable piece I saw the league put out yesterday with Tito voicing for Tim Wakefield. I didn't know Tim personally that well, but I interviewed him many times. One of my first jobs in this sport or in this industry was covering the Boston Red Sox in 2004. I was there every day through all of that, from the beginning of August all the way through the last game in the last out of the World Series. Experiencing that in the clubhouse, experiencing it in Boston, and it was an unbelievable experience for me. And he could not have been a nicer person and a better human. and you hear about all the things with teammates and in the community and all the times that you do interviews and you talk about him. But he was such a kind and classy guy. And that was a really, really touching moment for obviously kids who have gone through a lot. So all the best to them, and obviously love from here for Wake. We get the chance to get your love. So now that we're done here with this episode, before you chime out and get out and chime in, give me comments, get over now. Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Put in the magnifying glass, get in the YouTube channel, like, subscribe. Do it right now before you forget. Don't use the bathroom. Don't get water. Don't go anywhere else. Get over to Instagram. Give a follow at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Jump on, courtesy of the Believe Network, presented by Bet Online, to Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast. Subscribe, 5-star, like, tell your friends, bug your friends, annoy your friends, and become friends with us here on the Unfiltered Revolution.